what other stuff can you say about the code base that made it difficult? Like what are some interesting sort of quirks, broadly speaking, from that compared to just your experience with Comma and everywhere else?
The real thing that I spoke to a bunch of, like individual contributors at Twitter, and I just asked them, like, okay, so like, what's wrong with this place? Why does this code look like this? And they explained to me what Twitter's promotion system was. The way that you got promoted at Twitter was you wrote a library that a lot of people used. Right? So some guy wrote an Nginx replacement for Twitter. Why does Twitter need an Nginx replacement? What was wrong with Nginx? Well, you see, you're not going to get promoted if you use Nginx. But if you write a replacement and lots of people start using it as the Twitter front end for their product, then you're going to get promoted, right?
So interesting, because like from an individual perspective, how do you incentivize? How do you create the kind of incentives that will lead to a great code base? What's the answer to that?
So what I do at Comma and at Tiny Corp is you have to explain it to me. You have to explain to me what this code does, right? And if I can sit there and come up with a simpler way to do it, you have to rewrite it. You have to agree with me about the simpler way. Obviously we can have a conversation about this. It's not dictatorial, but if you're like, wow, wait, that actually is way simpler. Like the simplicity is important, right?
But that requires people that overlook the code at the highest levels to be like, okay.
It requires technical leadership you trust.
Yeah, technical leadership. So managers or whatever should have to have technical savvy, deep technical savvy.
Managers should be better programmers than the people who they manage.
Yeah. And that's not always obvious trivial to create, especially at large companies. Yeah. Managers get soft.
And and this is just, I've instilled this culture at Comma, and Comma has better programmers than me who work there. But, again, I'm like the old guy from Good Will Hunting. It's like, look, man, I might not be as good as you, but I can see the difference between me and you. Right. And this is what you need. This is what you need at the top. Or you don't necessarily need the manager to be the absolute best. I shouldn't say that, but they need to be able to recognize skill. Yeah.
And have good intuition that's laden with wisdom from all the battles of trying to reduce complexity in code bases.
I took a political approach at Comma too that I think is pretty interesting. I think Elon takes the same political approach. Google had no politics. And what ended up happening is the absolute worst kind of politics took over. Comma has an extreme amount of politics, and they're all mine, and no dissidence is tolerated.
So it's a dictatorship.
Yep. It's an absolute dictatorship, right? Elon does the same thing. Now, the thing about my dictatorship is here are my values.
Yeah, it's just transparent.
It's transparent. It's a transparent dictatorship, right? And you can choose to opt in or, you get free exit, right? That's the beauty of companies. If you don't like the dictatorship, you quit.
So you mentioned rewrite before or refactor before features. Mm-hmm. If you were to refactor the Twitter code base, what would that look like? And maybe also comment on how difficult is it to refactor?
The main thing I would do is, first of all, identify the pieces and then put tests in between the pieces, right? So there's all these different, Twitter has a microservice architecture. There's all these different microservices. And the thing that I was working on there, look, George didn't know any JavaScript. He asked how to fix search, blah, 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 blah. Look, man, the thing is, I'm upset that the way that this whole thing was portrayed, because it wasn't taken by people honestly. It was taken by people who started out with a bad faith assumption.
Yeah.
And I can't
And you as a programmer were just being transparent out there, actually having fun, and this is what programming should be about. It's just
I love that Elon gave me this opportunity.
Yeah,
really, it does. And he came on the day I quit. He came on my Twitter Spaces afterward, and we had a conversation. I respect that so much.
Yeah, and it's also inspiring to just engineers and programmers, and it's cool. It should be fun. The people that were hating on it, it's oh man.
It was fun. It was fun. It was stressful, but I felt I was at a cool point in history, and I hope I was useful. I probably kind of wasn't, but maybe I was.
Well, you also were one of the people that kind of made a strong case to refactor.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting thing to raise. Maybe that is the right, the timing of that is really interesting. If you look at just the development of autopilot, going from Mobileye to just more, if you look at the history of semi-autonomous driving in Tesla, is more and more you could say refactoring or or starting from scratch, redeveloping from scratch.
It's refactoring all the way down.
And and the question is like, can you do that sooner? Can you maintain product profitability? And like, what's the right time to do it? How do you do it? You know, on any one day, it's like you don't want to pull off the Band-Aid. It's like like everything works. It's just like little fix here and there, but maybe starting from scratch.
This is the main philosophy of TinyGrad. You have never refactored enough. Your code can get smaller. Your code can get simpler. Your ideas can be more elegant.
But would you consider, you know, say you were like running Twitter development teams, engineering teams, would you go as far as like different programming language? Just go that far?
I mean, the first thing that I would do is build tests. The first thing I would do is get a CI to where people can trust to make changes.
So that if
before I touched any code, I would actually say, no one touches any code. The first thing we do is we test this code base. I mean, this is classic. This is how you approach a legacy code base. This is like what how to approach a legacy code base book will tell you.
So, and then you hope that there's modules that can live on for a while, and then you add new ones, maybe in a different language or
before we add new ones, we replace old ones.
Yeah. Meaning like replace old ones with something simpler.
We look at this thing that's 100,000 lines and we're like, well, okay, maybe this did even make sense in 2010, but now we can replace this with an open source thing, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, we look at this here's another 50,000 lines. Well, actually, you know, we can replace this with 300 lines of Go. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I trust that the Go actually replaces this thing because all the tests still pass. So step one is testing.
Yeah.
And then step two is like the programming language is an afterthought, right? You know, let a whole lot of people compete. Be like, okay, who wants to rewrite a module, whatever language you want to write it in, just the tests have to pass. And if you figure out how to make the test pass but break the site, we got to go back to step one. Step one is get tests that you trust in order to make changes in the code base.
I wonder how hard it is too, because I'm with you on testing and everything. I have from tests to like asserts to everything, but code is just covered in this because it should be very easy to make rapid changes and know that's not going to break everything. And that's the way to do it. But I wonder how difficult is it to integrate tests into a code base that doesn't have many of them.
So I'll tell you what my plan was at Twitter. It's actually similar to something we use at Comma. So at Comma, we have this thing called process replay. Mm-hmm. And we have a bunch of routes that'll be run through. So Comma is a microservice architecture too. We have microservices in the driving. Like we have one for the cameras, one for the sensor, one for the planner, one for the model. And we have an API, which the microservices talk to each other with. We use this custom thing called Serial, which uses ZMQ. Twitter uses Thrift. And then it uses this thing called Finagle, which is a Scala RPC backend. But this doesn't even really matter. The Thrift and Finagle layer was a great place, I thought, to write tests, right? To start building something that looks like process replay. So Twitter had some stuff that looked kind of like this, but it wasn't offline. It was only online. So you could ship like a modified version of it, and then you could redirect some of the traffic to your modified version and diff those two, but it was all online. Like there was no like CI in the traditional sense. I mean, there was some, but like it was not full coverage.
So you can't run all of Twitter offline to test something.
Well, then this was another problem. You can't run all of Twitter, right?
Period.
Twitter
one person can't.
Twitter runs in 3 data centers, and that's it.
Yeah.
There's no other place you can run Twitter, which is like, George, you don't understand. This is modern software development. No, this is bullshit. Like, why can't it run on my laptop? What do you do? Twitter can run it. Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not saying you're going to download the whole database to your laptop, but I'm saying all the middleware and the front end should run on my laptop, right?
That sounds really compelling.
Yeah.
But can that be achieved by a code base that grows over the years? I mean, the 3 data centers didn't have to be, right? Because they're totally different, like, designs.
The problem is more like, why did the code base have to grow? What new functionality has been added to compensate for the lines of code that are there?
One of the ways to explain it is that the incentive for software developers to move up in the companies to add code, to add, especially large.
And you know what? The incentive for politicians to move up in the political structure is to add laws.
Yeah.
Same problem.
Yeah. Yeah. If the flip side is to simplify.
I mean, you know what? This is something that I do differently from Elon with Comma about self-driving cars. You know, I hear the new version is going to come out, and the new version is not going to be better, but at first, and it's going to require a ton of refactors. I say, okay, take as long as you need. Like, you convince me this architecture is better? Okay, we have to move to it. Even if it's not going to make the product better tomorrow, the top priority is getting the architecture right.
So what do you think about sort of a thing where the product is online? So how, I guess, would you do a refactor? If you ran engineering at Twitter, would you just do a refactor? How long would it take? What would that mean for the running of the actual service?
And I'm not the right person to run Twitter. I'm just not. And that's the problem. Like I don't really know. I don't really know if that's, a common thing that I thought a lot while I was there was whenever I thought something that was different to what Elon thought, I'd have to run something in the back of my head reminding myself that Elon is the richest man in the world. And in general, his ideas are better than mine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a few things I think I do understand and know more about. But like in general, I'm not qualified to run Twitter. I shouldn't say qualified, but like, I don't think I'd be that good at it. I don't think I'd be good at it. I don't think I'd really be good at running an engineering organization at scale. I think I could lead a very good refactor of Twitter, and it would take like 6 months to a year, and the results to show at the end of it would be feature development in general takes 10x less time, 10x less man hours. That's what I think I could actually do. Do I think that it's the right decision for the business? Above my pay grade.
Yeah, but a lot of these kinds of decisions are above everybody's pay grade.
I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to do that. I just like if you really forced me to, yeah, it would make me upset if I had to make those decisions. I don't want to.
Yeah, but a refactor is so compelling. If this is to become something much bigger than what Twitter was, it feels like a refactor has to be coming at some point.
George, you're a junior software engineer. Every junior software engineer wants to come in and refactor the whole code. Okay. Like, that's like your opinion, man.
Yeah, it doesn't, sometimes they're right.
Well, like, whether they're right or not, it's definitely not for that reason, right? It's definitely not a question of engineering prowess. It is a question of maybe what the priorities are for the company. And I did get more intelligent, like, feedback from people, I think, in good faith, like, saying that. From Elon. And like, from Elon, sort of like people were like, well, a stop the world refactor might be great for engineering, but we have a business to run. And hey, above my pay grade.
What'd you think about Elon as an engineering leader? Having to experience him in the most chaotic of spaces, I would say.
My respect for him is unchanged. And I did have to think a lot more deeply about some of the decisions he's forced to make.
About the tensions within those, the trade-offs within those decisions?
About like a whole, like matrix coming at him. I think that's Andrew Tate's word for it. Sorry to borrow it.
Also, bigger than engineering, just everything.
Yeah, like the war on the woke.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, man, and like, he doesn't have to do this, He doesn't have to. He could go like Parag and go chill at the Four Seasons Maui, But see, one person I respect and one person I don't.
So his heart is in the right place, fighting in this case for this ideal of the freedom of expression.
I wouldn't define the ideal so simply. I think you can define the ideal no more than just saying Elon's idea of a good world. Yeah. Freedom of expression is...
But to you, it's still, the downsides of that is the monarchy.
Yeah, I mean, monarchy has problems, right? But I mean, would I trade right now the current oligarchy, which runs America, for the monarchy? Yeah, I would. Sure. For the Elon monarchy? Yeah, you know why? Because power would cost 1 cent a kilowatt hour. 1/10 of a cent a kilowatt hour.
What do you mean?
Right now, I pay about 20 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity in San Diego. That's like the same price you paid in 1980. What the hell?
So you would see a lot of innovation with Elon.
Maybe have some hyperloops.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm willing to make that trade-off, right? I'm willing to make, and this is why, people think that like dictators take power through some like through some untoward mechanism. Sometimes they do, but usually it's because the people want them. And the downsides of a dictatorship, I feel like we've gotten to a point now with the oligarchy where, yeah, I would prefer the dictator.